So if you think your table talk and milling about will bother me, all I can say is I lecture to sophomores. So I'm used to the front row being relatively absent here. And I talk to sophomores and to graduate students and to colleagues about media psychology. I'm interested in how people think and feel in relation mostly to the digitization of life. So in lots of different areas, as I'll mention, not particularly digital cities, but I think there's some lessons about when digital came to other places, what happened, who made money, how did people feel, what did they think. So to start off, I'm going to give you my hypothesis in a couple lines of text. Most of the rest is pictures. But now that life is digital, and that's what we're all talking about, and you're talking about, now that we've got ones and zeros to represent life, the individual experience of digital life, the digital city, or I would say just about anything else, I'm going to make an equivalency between the digital city and a social relationship, financial management, your health, shopping, whatever. What happens is those digital experiences become, for individuals, not for infrastructure folks, but for individuals, they become media experiences. So you get a mediatization, a totally made up word by us, of digital life and life forms and other domains. You get it on a screen with all the other problems and opportunities that happen in the context of media. So a digital city will be experienced for an individual, the psychological experience, just like all other media. And what that means is a lot of the information you're putting out is going to be processed, attended to, like a television program, like a Facebook page, like a cat video on YouTube. So I don't know what other people have been talking about the psychological experience of digital life here, but I don't guess that anyone has said your stuff is going to compete with cat videos, but that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about that story. Here's a familiar part of that story. This is my garage. This is the analog world. I have stuff in this garage in boxes that represent all kinds of stuff. I've got paper files, old vinyl records, a lot of photos. You all have similar things. Maps, love those things. Digital photo albums, medical records. That's my knee prior to the upcoming knee replacement. I've got these tapes, letters that should probably be burned, receipts for taxes. And all of that, and this is not new, but the completion of this is really sneaking up on us right now. That's been turned into ones and zeros by me, but with a great deal of help from a lot of other companies who are building products to do that. So that garage has become online media that now represents all that analog stuff that was in my garage. So this is a fundamental change. We knew this was going to happen 25 years ago. It is psychologically getting to the point right now where the ease of doing this and the completion of this, of sharing information about oneself, is really sneaking up on us. And so here it is. It's media. And we'll talk about what that means and where that fits into psychological life. So the argument here is the analog city gets digitized, ones and zeros, and a big part of it, not all of it, but a big part of it also becomes mediatized and is experienced as a piece of media in the context of all other media and all that might mean psychologically as to how much attention I pay, how much I'm willing to pay for it, how I feel when I'm using it, how long I use it. It becomes mediatized. So this is life in all domains: social relationships, health, financial management, the experience of the city, everything from birth to death is on a screen. So there's a lot of competition for that screen. But one of the interesting things psychologically is it makes all the stuff on this screen more similar than different. This is where the stuff lives. And it maybe used to be the case that money, relationships, health, transportation, all these things were separate domains. Now, because they're on the screen, they share an equivalency that's interesting psychologically. And with your discussion of the Internet of Things, this will only become more complete and quickly. So all the IP addresses that are assigned to shoes and refrigerators and the plants outside in my garden all get on the screen and all become content for media. So we can't think about radio, television, newspapers, film anymore, or even just the internet and all its services. Psychologically, we need to think about the combination of all that and what that might mean. So what I'm going to do is talk about some implications of that fact, this mediatization of digital content, and what that means psychologically, and try to talk about some stuff that maybe you wouldn't think about. And these are results from our laboratory. As a psychologist, most of the things that we do are experimental in the lab. They're increasingly in the field right now, but we look at physiological responses to digital information. We talk to people and look at how it's handled in groups. But I'm going to talk about 7 different ways it's important. The first thing I want to mention is that the screens that all of this information that you're making and that others have made is appearing on fewer and fewer devices. It used to be the case that we had a device for everything. We had a separate work computer, we had a separate home computer, we had a videotape player. Even now we've got computers and devices for each of the sensors that we might have in our home. But I'm suggesting, and I think we're finding, especially if you stay tuned to the youngest of those that are being digitized, that these 2 screens, with a couple exceptions, what I'll note for you, but these 2 screens are an increasing part of life. If you're a sophomore at Stanford, these are your 2 screens. In your dorm room, you do not have a television set. You don't have a videotape player. You don't have separate devices for everything. In fact, you've got everything is being funneled from these 2 screens. And so what I'm saying is that these media, the mediatization of the city and anything else, all of this media are making their way funneled into, crowding into these 2 screens. Maybe that's dark, but maybe there's another screen in the car that's a separate screen, that's the next Tesla screen. But more likely it's going to be the iPhone or something else, because we don't like a lot of screens. People like the idea that they can switch between content on just a couple of screens rather than switching screens. So to get to all this different material, all I need to do is switch windows in the z-axis, the one window right behind the next. The refrigerator IP address reporting out what it's got in it goes right next to my coding homework for CS 101, and bam, 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 ordering a pizza, and that is likely what we're looking at. So minimum number of screens, 2. Because there are only a few screens, and because those screens are being optimized for quick, rapid, cool, satisfying, fast switching, a lot of the attention that people are giving to digital information is in increasingly short bursts. So what's new about the psychology of media? It's that short bursts of attention are really important. And I'm going to challenge you to think about how short. I'm going to again talk about university students, but that's where this is all heading. So one of the things that we've done in the last couple of years is instrument the 2 devices, a smartphone and a laptop, so that we can get a screenshot periodically, say every 3 to 5 seconds, of what's going on that screen and have it sent back to our central server so that we can then put it up on a wall, do a lot of stat on it as well, but we can put it up on a wall. This is only a couple hours of every 5 seconds on a sophomore's laptop, might be a junior or senior. But we can begin to see what are they doing with this z-axis. How are they calling up one screen versus the next? What is actually happening there? And it's, you see a lot of things when you throw it up on the wall, even before you start doing the stats, you notice a lot of things that are happening. These are short bursts of single tasks in a series of screens. And they're radically different as you go between them. So here's a fun question. How long is the average, and it's the median that I'm going to report to you first, length of one segment of digital life, parenthesis, for undergraduates at Stanford right now? Just think about your own laptop. How long before you switch screens? Switch screens from looking at the traffic pattern in a digital city, to ordering a pizza, to checking Mary Beth's Facebook page to see if that new photo's there, to writing a Spanish paper. How fast is that going? And this is really important. How long before you switch to something else? Any guesses? 3 seconds. Wow, you've heard me before. So the median switch for these Stanford students is 11 seconds. So half of the screens that appear on one of those two devices are processed for 11 seconds. And a lot of them are processed less than 5 seconds. Now there's a long tail on that. You might get a YouTube video or a television series program that's recorded that may go out in the tens of minutes. But right now, there are very, very few 1 hour, 90 minutes, watch the whole movie before something else interferes. And I'll talk about why in a minute, but the why is there's a pause button. You don't miss a thing. You can stop. So these segments are going extremely quickly. Bursts of attention. So whatever you're making that you want people to be aware of, want these sophomores to be aware of when they're ready to experience the digital city, it's going to be in really short chunks. It's not going to be, let's have the digital cities table at dinner and we'll all sit here for an hour and we'll look at a continuous output of information that we can process. That won't be the case. It'll be in really quick bursts. Okay, number 3 of the 7. These experiences get fragmented. We all want to talk about the movie, the entire 90-minute movie, or the entire plan that I'm going to make for my transportation this week, this day, or even this morning, as large chunks of experience. But what happens is that the interfaces for these two devices are so cool and kind to people that want to quickly switch that you end up taking these experiences, blowing them up into a million pieces, and scattering them throughout the digital experience. So they become fragmented. This is 30 people. Each of the rows is a different subject for a week. And it's we do a lot of visualization of this, a lot of these data. These are the same screenshots that you saw up on the wall here. So 30 subjects that are providing switching between different kinds of content, and we've colored the content differently. The blue is entertainment-oriented content in this particular example. The red is email and work content in this particular example. But I've put this up here to show that you could find that history paper in a bunch of different segments and recompile it to know what it was like to write a history paper, but that's not how the paper's getting written. And anything else that's happening digitally, that's not how it's getting written. And then you can also see, I'll mention this as number 7 here, that there's a lot of individual variance here. Like blue is entertainment. This guy's having way too much fun for the tuition at Stanford. This person here is working too hard. You can begin to see that there's very little usefulness in aggregating across these 30 subjects or 30,000 in a city. There's a lot of individual variation. So here's the history of media then. We've got these nice large chunks of media that, because people didn't have any choice, had to be experienced as those large color blocks on the top, with this increasing fragmentation, increasingly short bursts of attention. This is what you've got going on down on the bottom here. I think this is an important picture for what you're up to. So most businesses, most literatures in psychology, most interests are about these large color blocks. I want to make the digital city experience. I want to make a great movie. I want to build the best interface between driving an autonomous car and a human. I'm interested in energy efficiency. I want to build all the dashboards so people will make better decisions. I want to build the shopping interface. I want to help people with better health. There's a lot to think about, but scripting that from A to Z, in terms of the psychology of how it's experienced, is not really that useful. Because here's my life. My life is a piece of all those things. Rapid succession between all those things. So it's useful to think about the business value and the strategies associated with the big color blocks, but it's not as useful when it comes to actually thinking about how that will be consumed. It will be fragmented, blown apart, and scattered into a multicolored bar there that shows how quickly people are going between different things. Okay, a couple examples here that we've been working on. I've been very interested in the car context and the psychology of how media may be introduced into the car, not only in dashboard displays, but just in terms of what people want to do. What do you want to do when the car says, I've got the next 10 minutes handled on the highway? I know what's happening ahead. What do you want to do? Well, not car stuff. In fact, I spoke to a group of international engineers who were thinking about what people might want to do. And of course, the first thoughts of engineers, well, they want to text and send email and work on their travel report or whatnot. And I found a wonderful video that was posted and taken down not long afterward of a couple driving on the Autobahn on an experimental road that allowed their Mercedes autopilot to work. And this couple, I'll say they were 25, set the autopilot. And what's the first thing they do? Well, they start giggling, they start pawing each other, and they jump in the back seat. That's what people want to do. They want to cook food, go to the bathroom, and increasingly the stuff they want to do will start winnowing down into shorter and shorter bursts of time as that happens. So if you're in your autonomous car and it actually does something for you, you're taking up different bits of media, you want to do different things. And that's obvious, but in short bursts. Here's one example. This doesn't necessarily relate to digital cities, but it's the most recent thing we just completed here. So I'll give you a little taste of writing a paper at Stanford. Okay, so we educators think about, here's a writing assignment, write this history paper, and how do sophomores, Stanford students write that paper? Well, we as instructors often think that they've got this thought process, they're gonna sit down, block off 2 hours, I'm gonna at least do the first half of it. That's not the case. So the 11 seconds that I showed you actually extends to almost over a minute of writing before you do something else. And 60% of that something else is totally unrelated to your writing assignment. So arguably, the most successful students, or as successful as anywhere else students, are doing that writing in short bursts of maybe a minute, but there's a Facebook page in between or ordering a pizza in between, and we've got lots of interesting little visualizations of how that happens. But here's something to think about, because the first thought that everybody, or at least I had, when you see those data, are, we're not going to make it. This is going to be terrible. These guys are going to be my president and doctor and lawyer, and they're going to be dumb, and there's not going to be contemplative and good thinkers. So we actually were able to, with these screenshots, see what they were writing, look at the interruption, how long it was, and then see what happened when they got back. And you can make judgments about the quality of that writing, the amount of material that was produced. When you go out to an irrelevant activity from the writing, this Facebook page being irrelevant to this writing, you could be going out to check a website or something that was relevant, but when you go out to something irrelevant, when you come back to the writing, you edit prior material more, the production, total production of words is greater than if you went out to something relevant, and the quality of the writing is better, as judged by these automated ways to actually look at the grade level and sophistication of vocabulary. So don't think automatically that this is terrible. It could be, but it could be interesting as well. It's certainly different, but it may not be terrible. Okay. One of the things that happens when you actually start blurring all this content, when you've got this screen that's different from this screen that's different from this screen, is the shortness of these attention bursts start to suggest, at least to the people processing the information, that there's some similarity across all this stuff. So I might have this very high-end, data-driven kind of high school physics chart presentation of traffic pattern in the city, and then I might be watching this stupid cat video on television. You start thinking, well, you know, why isn't there a cat video of traffic patterns in the city? And so we're very interested in that because when this blurring starts happening, you get hybrids of content that we might not be able to imagine. And these are interesting business possibilities, I think, as well. So one of the things that I spent the last couple of years working on as part of an RPE energy project was doing that, explicitly doing that. Taking the idea that, this is in the area of energy efficiency, but the idea that there's a lot of information available that could be made available to individuals about the electrical use in their home, but it's being made available in ways that are stunningly boring, especially in this context of quick bursts. So let's make a game out of it. Okay, let's, instead of the PG&E smart meter reporting to some data website, we'll have a report to a game server, and we'll make this game that is advantaged or disadvantaged based on the electrical usage in your home. So you're actually playing with the real world and blending the media and the real world there as well. So the fun part of the game, and you're getting points, and you're being compared to people in your neighborhood, and you're doing better or worse than them, and you know, things blow up or don't blow up on the basis of what you're able to actually do in your home. And you might find people running around actually turning off the lights to try to get it registered quickly enough to appear in the game. Is an interesting example, I think, of a hybrid. It is, we actually did some pre-tests of this. It does reduce electrical usage. Not sure how much better than some of the other more data-oriented things, but it does do it better. With all the caveats of, I think I was here yesterday for a bit, and somebody mentioned the difficulty of getting PG&E data. That's us as well. So it's very difficult to get, and there's secrecy, privacy, legal problems, and it's just enough to make you want to take a nap. I will note that the students, when we said, we're going to put logging software in your laptop that every 5 seconds sends us a picture of whatever's on the screen, can we do that? Yeah, sure. Not a problem. Yeah, so that's a whole nother talk, but there's an interesting change that's happening, I think, with how people, the sensitivity that people have to that privacy. Okay, so a couple more. I'm a consumer. I'm in control of this. And if you think you're in control and I'm in control right now because you kind of have to watch the next slide. It'd be impolite to leave. But in the media world, you guys are in control. You can pause Byron without missing a darn thing. You can shift time, but especially this. This is so critical for the media world right now. Pause Byron, don't miss a thing. Go do whatever looks cooler or feels better at this time, and then come back. And that is really a dramatic change. I'm going to show you one result from this study that we did with not only logging information from people's laptops, but we put on their wrist a physiological sensor that collected every second skin conductance measures and heart rate acceleration and deceleration measures that indicated how aroused they were, how interested were they in what's happening. And something really interesting happened. In all of media psychology, it's you see it, you respond. It's really the stimulus response. You know, the explosion happens in the movie, wow, my attention goes up. It's a passive audience context. When the audience is in control, it is totally reversed. It is active control of what's going on. So here's the data. This black line right here is the point at which people switch from one screen to the next. The blue line that you see is the arousal level as measured by the skin conductance measure of how excited your body is. Kind of an involuntary response for excitation response. And old world, passive media, the switch happens, arousal goes up. Media in control. Look what happens now. Arousal starts going up about 10 to 15, sometimes even longer seconds before the switch happens. So I'm sitting there writing the history paper, a little boring. I wonder if Mary Beth posted that new picture. Well, I'll finish this one last sentence here, but oh, that might be kind of cool. And so my excitement level starts going up. And so it's going up, and then the switch happens, and then it starts going down. So this is more evidence, by the way, I think, that the response, that what's regulating attention here is not the rational need for information that will make life more efficient, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but it's emotion regulation. It's kind of keeping an excitement level that I can manage going in my life that'll just kind of keep me into whatever I'm doing. And no different, I think, across all these different contexts. So I think that's kind of important data. Information hunting. I put this in here because the demographics that we want to know the difference between men and women and old people, young people, and urban and rural people. I mean, those are the traditional demographics for media. We're exploring some other things. When you have these small little bits of information, you get to go hunting. I get to go hunting during the day for what will excite me or what I need. And I do that. And here's an example of a personality characteristic that seems to be really important in how people hunt digital information. Two types of people, risk takers and risk avoiders. One of the most fundamental, interesting differences available in psychology for how people process information, how people hunt stuff, what they do at a cocktail party, et cetera. So what we did is to go look at these different combinations of these personality types to see how they're hunting this digital information. Risk avoiders spend less total time going back and forth in these fragments. Risk takers, shorter segments. 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 7 seconds, got to go to the next one. Take another risk versus avoid one. The people that actually have both of those systems coactive spend the most time doing all the switching, and the inactives that really don't have either have the most different sessions. They'll do a session, close it down, do another session. I mean, there's a lot of psychological detail on this, but I mention it as a when you get digitization going here, it is a different set of demographics that really may be interesting. Okay, the last thing I want to mention is when you do interventions, which almost every presentation that I've mentioned thinks is a useful thing to do, to give you something that would be useful in your life right now, whether it's the right pill or the right traffic information or whatever it is, it's different when you've got, here are those 30 people again, when you've got such tremendous variance across individuals. And you've got more opportunity for variance because the fragments are so darn short. So if you averaged the color bars, this is one person, another person, another person, you can see they're really different. If you average them to do an aggregate level, people in Seattle, what are people in Seattle like and how are they different from people in San Francisco, you'd get nothing. You just know very, very little about the micro psychology that's going on that's absolutely critical to what they're making sense of. So what we're taking from that, this is another example we use from that. These are 50, I think, people that were in an experiment. Before they participated in the experiment, we took a picture of their hands. And it was a nice little graphic, and it's a painting, actually, at a building at Penn State. But you can tell a lot from these hands. You can tell their race and their gender and their age and maybe occupation. But when you average them all together, as we are wont to do in psychology, you get this hand 3 up from where I'm pointing right now, which is this blur. That's the digital average of all these people. And it's useless, except for how many digits do humans have? So one of the things that we're doing with these data, it's all time series data, models of individuals, and then models across the models. But starting out looking at variance over time for individuals. So this information is all being collected moment by moment, as you know, for particular individuals. And what we want to do is know exactly what's happening with their excitation level in relation to a particular frame. And then that's the point for Frank that we're going to intervene with particular information. I know a lot of people have suggested that, but I think this is a different orientation, especially in psychology, maybe less so to professional big data folks, but time series, knowledge about individuals is pretty much the way to go. So just in closing here, I think I'm out of time here, but is this good or bad? Yes. It's certainly different. It's certainly different. It's fire, I think. And you can, and by the way, the horse is out of the barn. Don't be thinking about a strategy to get your kids to spend more time on the history, on one segment of writing a history paper. It's probably not going to work. The best thing to do is kind of figure out how to work with the fire.
So just one quick point, Byron. One of the reasons that I start to behave like this is that I'm trying to work and pop up on my screen a text message, pop up an email message. Seems like the applications are competing for your attention.
Yeah, so when we talk about multitasking, usually we talk about, we commonly understand it as things in our environment on the XY axis that are popping up and causing us to look over here. If you look at a laptop screen right now, people don't use the multiple windows enough. They don't want to be interrupted. They want to do the interrupting. But that's a media-driven interruption. You can sign up for it. You can have that window pop up, but it's less and less. Less than 0.2% of the millions of frames that we've gathered have multiple screens, and those are all people writing code that want multiple screens. So I think it's a good thing to notice, but it's not multitasking anymore by like, where shall I look and how is media driving that? It is task switching that is more with the individual.